I learned a very valuable lesson in that most cases, the red carpet's not going to be rolled out for you. When most people think that the door is closed because there's no red carpet, they quit, they go get a job in the real world, they don't think it's for them, they don't think it's meant to be. I'm like, I might not get an invite to the party, but I'm going to go anyways. Most people are waiting for someone else to say that it's okay, like, you know, come to the party, or you can come here or get that invite. For me, I realized that, like, I'm gonna give myself permission to succeed wildly. I'm gonna give myself permission to rock a Rolex if I want to. I'm gonna give myself permission to wear Christian Dior if that's what I like. I'm gonna give myself permission to fly private if I like. And so many people hold themselves back because on one hand, they kind of want it, right? But on the other hand, they're so programmed by society, religion, their parents, the school system, that it's like, that's not kosher to say, or that's not kosher to talk about.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap. I am your host, Bridger Rogers, and today we have somebody really exciting. This is an ex-NFL football player. He's built a coaching business that is doing $25 million projected this year. And on top of that, he just has incredible style. We ran into each other here locally in Scottsdale. I'm good friends with one of his top closers. And so if you're a young guy and you want to learn how to build your status, your body, you want to actually start to ball out in business, I don't think there's anybody balling out harder than John Madsen right now in Scottsdale. So I'm super pumped to have you, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you. And it was great to run into you at the coffee shop, and now we're here. So
yeah,
excited for the show.
Yeah, super excited, super grateful. We're going to talk on a lot of things. I think what my audience would want to know most about you is, number one, what was the transition coming out of NFL football, right? Because that's very regimented, very scheduled. You've got a lot of help, to then becoming an entrepreneur, essentially a solopreneur when you start. And it's taken you a while to really crush it, right? Because I remember, and maybe we can go and kind of kick the podcast off with, you know, about 4 years ago, I remember hearing in one of your episodes when I was doing my research, you actually got to a point where you had to borrow money to make payroll. And 4 years later, dude, totally different story. Totally recreated yourself. So do you want to kind of talk about that journey?
Yeah, man, it's funny. Now people view me as like this overnight sensation. Like, it was like, we're catching fire. We'll probably do $3 million this month alone. And so it's like this rocket ship company that we've created in the fitness industry. But like you said, 4 years ago, I had to take a loan from PayPal to pay for my employees. They didn't know it at the time, but there was no money in the bank. And so when I got cut in 2010, I got a one-way plane ticket back home. I was with the Cleveland Browns for a little bit at the end of my career, had a 3-year NFL career. Got a one-way plane ticket back home. I was cut, 27 years old, done with football. And I loved fitness. Fitness was like a part of my life since I was, 15 years old. So there was a backstory there. So when I got cut, I was thinking about, what should I do, right? Because you're right. There was a lot of, like, every single day I woke up in the NFL, I had an itinerary. I knew what time I had to go to a meeting. It was set, right? And so once that was taken away, I knew that I wanted to make a lot of money. I didn't know how, because I was a middle-class kid. I didn't come from money. My dad was a truck driver. My best friend in the world is my dad. He got up and did something he hated for 30 years of his life so that he could retire, so that he could coach me in sports, right? So he sacrificed everything doing something he hated to at least put food on the table. So that was my upbringing. So I saw a lot of money in the NFL. I didn't make a ton. It wasn't like I had multi-million-dollar, contracts, but I made 1.2 million over a 3-year period. Take taxes out, agent fees, living. I remember leaving, I had $300K in my bank account, and I was like, okay, this is the second part of my life. So I was talking to my financial advisor. I was like, maybe I want to do what you do. I just need to find something to where I could make some money. And then one day I was working out at a 24-hour fitness, and I saw this trainer training high school kids. And I watched for an hour this trainer. He didn't know he didn't know that he was doing it wrong or did anything necessarily wrong, but I remember feeling like he wasted an hour of those kids' time because they were doing like little footwork drills, and I'm like, man, I can reach those kids because it's more about their heart and their mentality than any of this stuff. So that day, like, I had to download, like, go back to Salt Lake City, open up a performance gym and train these kids. And so that's what I did. I was living in Arizona at the time, put my house up for rent, went back to Salt Lake City, knew nothing about business, opened up my first gym. About 150K of that 300K went into that first gym. And the other 150K was gone after 16 months because I didn't know how to run a business. And so that was my entryway into entrepreneurship back in 2010 into the fitness industry, having a real, brick and mortar performance gym. So, this overnight success that people see in 2024 now started in 2010, 14 years ago.
Yeah, totally. And I would even beg to argue that a lot of the disciplines and the things that you learned when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 on the come up to get into the NFL, that also probably played a huge role. Would you agree?
Yeah, man, it does. And I like to take all the great lessons I learned in sport, the discipline, the toughness, the grit, the relentlessness, and apply it to business. I think it translates very well. Unfortunately, though, you don't see that all the time. There's plenty of athletes that went to the top that have nothing to show for it later because it didn't translate for whatever reason. So I think that because I had this walk-on mentality, I never played a single down of high school football. And so the backstory of me getting into fitness was I was an athlete growing up. I was going to try out for the high school football team, which everybody made unless you quit. But the first thing that you had to do is go through summer conditioning. And so at that point, I played football since I was 10 years old. I was always one of the best players on the team. But we went in the weight room for the first time when I was a sophomore. And I remember having to max out on bench press. When I have 5 of my friends there, we threw 25 pounds on the bar and it comes crushing down on my chest. You saw me walk in this room. I'm 6'5".
Yeah. Back
then I was that tall, not really 6'5", but I was super tall and super skinny. So all my friends are laughing at me. They're like, John, you're weak, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, man, my sternum felt like it was crushed, but my confidence was crushed. And so I went home and told my dad, I said, Dad, I'm not going to play football. I'm going to get killed out there. This is what happened. Will you help me work out? And so for the next 6 months, me and my dad worked out. I didn't play football. I just went to the gym. I got to a point, my dad's like, I can't really help you, but I'm going to sign you up with this local trainer. So I worked out with this power lifter guy for the next 3 years. Monday, Wednesday, Friday night, 7 p.m. I was there. This dude crushed me. So I put on about 25 pounds of muscle. My athleticism exploded, bigger, faster, stronger, but most importantly, my mentality changed. So although I didn't play high school football, I'm standing at graduation and I'm like, I'm gonna go walk on to a college team. So I walked on without ever playing, and then I walked on again at the University of Utah a year later. So for me, it was like, I've always been this underdog. And so that drive and that work ethic, that drive to prove people wrong has stayed with me this whole time. Wow, that's crazy. That's a really cool story to hear how, I thought that maybe, number one MVP high school, but dude, you didn't even play in high school. Right. And then just because you were you had that chip on your shoulder, that underdog mentality, you took that. A lot of people would quit. Yeah. But you didn't. You took that as fuel and motivation. What are some of the things that you learned in that process of walking on and then getting into the NFL? Because I don't know what the stats are, but it's very hard to do that. Yeah, less than 1% of high school athletes make it to the NFL or make professional sport. That's insane. So you take a kid that never played that sport in high school, and the chances of that, I know 2 guys that have done that. Basketball players didn't play high school, and essentially that was what I was going to do. So I played basketball. The problem was my junior and senior year, when I was a starter, we went 1-39. So we won 1 game, lost 39. I wasn't getting recruited. And so when I went to this local junior college, I had a basketball highlight film, and I went and knocked on the basketball coach's office, and I was like, hey coach, I want to try out. I just wanted to, bring by my highlight film. He said, John, I don't know if you can play or not play, but my roster's full. And so if you want to, try out for basketball, I'm not saying you can't ever play college basketball. You're going to have to do it somewhere else. But I didn't apply anywhere else. And so in that moment, I literally made a decision where I took that basketball highlight film and knocked on the football coach's door and said, look, I played basketball. I was coming here to play basketball. I'm 6'5". I'm pretty fast. I can run. I can jump. I think I can be a pretty good wide receiver. Will you give me a shot? And my exact words were, if I suck, you can cut me. There's no risk, right? And they looked at me like I was crazy. And they're like, yeah, man, tryouts are this date. We'll set you up and, can't make any promises. And there was my opportunity. And so with that, and then ultimately deciding to walk on at the University of Utah when Urban Meyer was there. And we ended up winning a Fiesta Bowl, ranked number 4 in the nation. Alex Smith was the quarterback. I learned a very valuable lesson in that most cases, the red carpet's not going to be rolled out for you. There are guys that are 5-star recruits, 4-star recruits. They have the red carpet rolled out. They're getting money to go play ball. And so that happens to some people. That just didn't happen to me. And so when most people think that the door is closed because there's no red carpet, they quit, they go get a job in the real world. They don't think it's for them. They don't think it's meant to be. I'm like, I might not get an invite to the party, but I'm going to go anyways. And so I've done that over and over and over again in sport and in business. It's like, you don't want to roll out the red carpet. You don't think I'm worthy. I'll show you.
Yeah, I can relate so much to that. You know, because when I was growing up, right, like my dad was a carpenter. He never made more than $60,000 in a year. And then he got in a car accident and then he got like disabled pretty much, couldn't work. So I grew up from 9 to 15, barely, you know, we got on food stamps, super broke. So I'm like, dude, I'm not letting this happen ever. I'm gonna stack cash. I'm gonna make money. And so I have a very similar mentality. And so I think that it's really important for the audience to listen to that. And there's so many lessons you could extrapolate, right? It's like, don't quit when things are stacked against you. Right? Being able to persevere and continue is just the first step. But I think another thing that you had to overcome that I'd love to hear about, and a lot of guys that are new in sales, right, or getting started in a new business, there's a lot of pressure on them, right? And when you're, you know, going to the basketball coach, and then now you're going to the football coach, and you got tryouts, there's a massive amount of pressure. How did you, number one, did you just ignore the pressure? What are some tips for people? Like, how did you handle that?
I've tried to deconstruct this a lot because, you know, I thought about what made me do the things that I did. Like, that's a random thought to just divert and go to football after not playing for 3 years. But I truly believe that the one thing that holds most people back in anything that they want to do is they're terrified of failing. And it's not the failure that they're actually scared of. If they were to peel back that one more layer, it's the embarrassment. And so if nobody in the world existed, I could just go try out for the football team. And if I sucked, if I tripped over my shoelaces, if I was the worst player in the world, like, nobody cares. There's nobody there to witness it. So what would you do? You just get up and practice more and try again. But people are afraid to look like an idiot. They're afraid to fail. And so they're not necessarily afraid of the failure. They're afraid of what people's perception of that failure is going to be. And so it takes a lot of courage to go out there and risk failure in anything that you do. And most people aren't willing to risk it. They're too afraid of that unknown. And so for me, I tackled that early. It's like, look, I don't care what people are going to say. I don't care if I suck. I don't care if I get cut. I don't care if, you know, I look stupid out here. I'm going to go give it my best. And if that's not good enough, at least I tried. And because I tried, I'm better than anybody else that didn't have the courage to try. And so I think that one thing holds people back. They're just deathly afraid to put themselves out there. And if they were to really consider it, they're considering far too much what other people are going to think about that failure. Yeah.
One of the most important, I think, core values and things you talk about in your content, your branding, and in your team culture. And that's what I actually loved most when I met Zach, is he just was like, boom, here's our core values. I'm living by it. I'm like, dude, I want to know who the leader of this thing is. Yeah. So I looked up your stuff. I'm like, dude, this is a cool guy.
Thank you.
When I get to meet him, I'm excited. So I'm grateful that I was able to meet you. And so let's talk about one of your core values for a second, because I think that ties directly into what you just said, right? Like, not giving weight to what people think of you. Give yourself permission to win.
Yeah, that if I had a billboard and I could broadcast one message to the world. I have a daughter, she's 6. That would be the message. And it goes back to what I said about the red carpet, right? It's like most people are waiting for someone else to say that it's okay, like, you know, come to the party, or you can come here, or get that invite. For me, I realized that, like, I'm going to give myself permission to succeed wildly. I'm going to give myself permission to rock a Rolex if I want to. I'm going to give myself permission to wear Christian Dior if that's what I like. I'm going to give myself permission to fly private if I like. And so, so many people hold themselves back because on one hand, they kind of want it, right? But on the other hand, they're so programmed by society, religion, their parents, the school system, that it's like, that's not kosher to say, or that's not kosher to talk about. And so in our company, it's a fitness company. The reason we do so good is because we talk about the aesthetics of it a lot. It's like, look, yeah, you're going to get healthier, but everybody else dances around this topic of fitness. It's like, yeah, you should get, I want to get in shape for my kids, or, my doctor says I should, get in shape because my cholesterol's too high, or whatever their reasons are. We're like, we want to look like a savage.
Yeah.
Right. And that's completely okay. Like, you're going to get healthier, but you're going to actually, instead of going to the gym for 7 years and hardly looking like it, we're going to make you the person that looks like a top 1%er. You want to have $1 million life, you're going to have $1 million body to go with it. And so the core value from a fitness sense is like, that's okay. But from a broader sense, it's like, whatever you want in life, if you're clear about it, whatever that is you want, if it's a material thing, if it's whatever it is, give yourself permission to go get it, because nobody else is going to. Yeah.
Dude, that's so good, man. Yeah, and even when I listen to that, I kind of analyze my life. I'm like, where am I seeking permission in my life to be able to win? Like, who am I calling, and why am I not just giving myself that permission to be a savage and go all in? And I think that's one of the things I think a lot of young guys struggle with as they're like building their identity, figuring out who they are in their 20s.
Yeah.
And then you've already lived your 30s. You're 41?
41.
41. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So 41. So what are some of the lessons that you extrapolated in your 30s, right? Because I know you had a really good video. In fact, I want to link that video. He created an incredible YouTube video on what you wish you knew in your 20s. And that was one of the lessons. And so what are a couple of your favorites out of those top 10 that you'd want to share?
I wish I knew, dude. You should have had it pulled up for me. I must have been inspired that day. But
you were fired up, dude.
When I was 36, we mentioned this earlier, when I had to take that loan out.
Yeah.
I had a podcast. Like, I started a podcast, and I started it probably 5 years ago. And when I started it, I had a cell phone and I had a microphone that I just plugged in, right? And I had wanted to do a podcast. I had wanted to be way bigger. So if we take that performance gym in Salt Lake City that almost went out of business, and then there was a lot of stuff that went on. And I'll fast forward to about 2017. I went to a little conference, and Lewis Howes was speaking, School of Greatness podcaster. And I knew he was an Ohio kid, and so I told him that I could get Urban Meyer on his podcast. I'm like, I'll just throw him a bone. This would be, a cool interview. And so everyone's shaking his hand and like trying to get his autograph. I'm like, yo, do you want Urban on your show? And he's like, oh, hold up a second. So, then we had a 10-minute, it bought me 10 minutes to just kind of mine for gold for a second. He's like, what do you do? I'm like, well, I have this performance gym, but I want to do a podcast, man. I want to get the message out. He's like, dude, his exact words was, John, your story, there's more than 300 people in your local community that needs to hear it. So go do it, right? And so that was like, I'll never forget that conversation, because like a lot of the people listening here, there's dreams, there's this desire, there's things that you want to do, but for whatever reason, like, you're just not doing it. And it's so simple to a person that has kind of ascended that resistance. For me, like, that's how I would come at somebody else who would approach me. It's like, well, if you want to do it then. Right? But people are stuck in their heads, right? And so I think that my biggest lesson is to be aware of the why behind the resistance. Why are you not doing the thing that you want to do? And you got to get honest with yourself. It goes back to me, it was my upbringing shaped an identity that I had, right? Salt Lake City, we weren't on food stamps, but we weren't on the rich side of town. I had food on the table. I knew my mom and dad worked their butts off. I knew we were like considered West Valley, which is the west side, which is the poor side. And people took pride in that, right? It's like, we're from the west side, and we don't have the nice cars. We don't have the Christian Dior. We don't have the stuff. And so it's like you create an identity of not having, and you secretly kind of want to have. But a lot of the reason I wasn't moving forward with the stuff was because my identity was like, there was guilt and shame around the admission that I wanted this extravagant life. I wanted to drive the exotic cars. I wanted to live in a city like Scottsdale. I wanted to fly private when I could fly private. I wanted to wear designer clothes when I wanted to wear designer clothes. And it was just like everything against the identity that I had to have when I was growing up. And so I was like, why am I so afraid to break this identity? I was this underdog. People rooted for me. People's like, that story's so good. Like, there should be a movie about it. And the problem with that was it was keeping me stuck. The problem, like, that story was the reason I had to take out a loan, that story of struggle. People relate to the story of struggle, right? It's like, man, I'm rooting for that guy. But you know who they don't root for? The champion.
Right.
The favorite.
Yep.
And so I made a decision that I wasn't going to be the lovable underdog anymore. I was going to give up my desire to keep the story of struggle, and I was just going to play the favorite. I was going to be the hero. I was going to be my own hero, and I wasn't going to be afraid of what that looked like to anybody or anything. And so if you look at any of my social stuff, like, there's a lot of people that don't like me. There's a lot.
I saw that, man.
Yeah.
Dude, some people hate you, dude.
They hate me. They hate me, dude. They hate me. We can get into that, but
yeah, we should.
I was good with it, right?
Yeah.
I was like, they're not paying my bills. I'm just going to go do what I'm going to do, and business started to explode.
Yeah.
So you asked about one of the lessons. It's like, I had to remove guilt and shame around my desires. So I had to get clear about the desires. Like, I had to get very clear about what I wanted and why. And then I had to remove any of the programming that had any type of guilt or shame around it. Because if you didn't grow up with money, there's money blocks in your mind, and it's more of a mindset than anything else. You could have all the skill in the world, but if you have a money block, you're not going to go slay it in sales. You're not, because you are identifying with a story that served you in the past. And the past must die if you're going to be somebody new.
Dude, that's so fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about, first off, the money blocks. What are some common money blocks that you see in your sales reps? Because you have the 8 killers, maybe nine killers now.
Some of them, they're starting to be killers.
Yeah, you got a couple killers.
Yeah. Dude, it goes back to, it's interesting to me we have a pipeline that's so full of gold that it's not even funny. So a lot of times people get a sales job and the leader's like, you got to go hunt, which I want my guys to hunt. However, every single day they get up and they have a pipeline full of qualified leads. They got to sit on their Zoom call and they got to slay. And sometimes they'll have 8 calls back to back to back to back. But if they slay, the money they can make is incredible. Now, a lot of the salespeople listening to this might be like, dude, sign me up for that. And that's how they all come in. But it's a grind for some personalities. If you're not a shark, then in other jobs, it's like you have days that you can take off. In my company, of course, you don't have to work around the clock, but it's like when you come, like, there's no time for you to go and mess around and play basketball in the middle of the day and do whatever. Like, you are there to slay and you are there to make a shit ton of money. And so that wears on certain people. And I think that what happens is people get comfortable. And so what's interesting to me is I can know what a person's money thermometer is. And if they get a little bit hot for a month, it's like the next month they take the foot off the gas. And it's like, even if they're a $20,000 a month closer, it's like they're going to be that average is going to stay true for the whole year. They might go 25 and then 15. They might even go 30, but then 10, right? It's like, it's so interesting that like whoever they believe they are at the root, that's how they're going to close. If they're a closer that's like, I'm a $40,000 a month guy, they'll get 40,000, but they'll never get 80,000 until they change the identity. It's not a skill thing. And so I think a lot of times, like, these guys think that it's like, if I could just handle objections better, then, I'll go from making 40,000 a month to 80,000 a month. No, if they're making 40,000 a month, they could easily get 80,000 a month if they believed that they were a millionaire, and they just don't yet.
Man, dude, that hit hard, dude, for me, because I can relate to that, dude, in more ways than one. So, and I'm sure a lot of the audience can too. What is the difference maker between a 40,000 a month closer and an $80,000 a month closer?
It's just a belief in who they are.
Yeah, but
other than that,
how do you develop that? That was my question. Because the belief, I agree, is 100% the difference maker. Because 40,000, I mean, you got to be a good closer. Skills are there. But what are some of the mindset shifts you had to go through that you were teaching your guys to, like, dude, let's go?
So like for my company, right? There was a time period for 18 months we were stuck around 350 grand a month. And I looked around, and that's no supplements. That's just fitness coaching. So a lot of times people do a lot of business coaching, and it's like, no, we don't do any business coaching. We coach people on how to get in elite shape. So we were doing $350,000 a month, and for like 18 months, it was just like there. Some month, 400, 250, 300, 400, right there, dude. And I would rack my brain on like why we couldn't break through. It's like, I thought it was a funnel. I thought it was all types of different stuff it could be. And then overnight, we had a couple shifts, and there are some like little pricing stuff and whatever. Overnight, we jumped to $1 million a month. It's like we actually went 275, 500, $1 million. And then we didn't dip below $1 million for another 11 months. But then we did 1.5, 2.5. And this month we're going to 3. And so it's like, even in my company, it's like you take these massive leaps. It's like you steady, and then, you know, business catches up, and then bam, there's another like hockey stick moment. And every time it's just been a shift in my belief about what's possible. And so I think a lot of times like people have these beliefs that act as like a governor on their max potential. It's like they don't believe that $80,000 is possible, right? And so they set goals that are just far too small. And you had a book that I mentioned when I walked in, 10X is easier than 2X. Yep. My company did it. In a year, we went from 300K to 3, which is essentially $3 to $4 million to 10. It's like, you know, and then if we zoom out to what 24 months is, it is going to look like 10X. Wow. So I think that belief part is huge, but then the other 3 would be energy. It's like your energy is contagious. And so not necessarily the words that are coming out of your mouth, it's like how you're showing up. So there's like energy and enthusiasm, which are things that only you can control, right? It's like that's not like a hard skill set to learn. It's like you can control those 2 things at all times, and then emotional control. So the 3 E's for me: energy, enthusiasm, emotional control. Because if you're too up when you're hot and too down when you're cold, it's like you're this roller coaster and you're going to be streaky. The people who can keep that emotional control solid, never too high, never too low, and then brings that energy and that certainty, those are the things that I believe are the difference between making $20,000 a month in my company and making 80.
Dude, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah, you know what's crazy? Because I actually ran, you know, Greg O'Gallagher's Keto Body coaching business, just the coaching part, right? And just with fitness coaching, right? We were selling to probably a similar demographic on the high ticket, you know, business guys in their 30s, 40s, 50s. We got stuck exactly the same. 3.3 million our first year, right? It was like 250, 300,000 a year, a little bit lower. And I was so frustrated because we couldn't break past this plateau. And I think I'd have to look back, and there's a number of different things, but for you, it was the belief and those 3 things that got you to the break point. And then what is it also? I'm just fascinated at how success works, because it is that way. I've noticed that in my life, not only with my fitness, I've noticed that with my relationships, I've noticed that in every area of my life. It's like, dude, you're putting in the work, and then all of a sudden it's like, bro, what? Where's the success been hiding all the whole time?
And it's almost like it comes like when you're about ready to throw in the towel. And that, I think that's the secret, is like, it's like you unlock a new level right before most people are going to quit. And so I think that I'm just so dumb and stubborn that I don't quit, that I keep eventually unlocking levels where most people are just like, it's not working, throw in the towel. So because, yeah, man, I remember being in Cabo right before we broke free, and me and my head of sales was like, man, we're looking at our Slack channel, nothing's popping through. And I'm like, dude, what is going on? Like, why? Like, you know, I was supposed to be enjoying this birthday party in Cabo, having a good time, but I couldn't because the Slack channel was, you know, not popping off. And, you know, it was like, I remember that time, and it was like right at the cusp of like, bro, like this is not working. And then bam, the next month, unlocked. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's so cool. Yeah. And you guys are crushing it. And what's your vision over the next couple of years? I'd love to hear how big and what you're going to do and all the moves you're going to make.
Yeah. So right now, just fitness coaching. Like there's as good as we have been, and I'll give credit. Like so I've been married for 10 years now. My wife was a news anchor in Salt Lake City, and then she was tired of that. She then became a VP of a tech company that went on a similar run. She got on board when they were like $5 million, and then she wrote them all the way to like 50 plus, right? Wow. And so when my company started taking off, she was like, okay, I don't have to work anymore. I'm working my face off. And so I'm just going to relax. And so she starts relaxing, but then she starts asking me a bunch of questions about the business. Like, what do you guys do for this? Or what do you guys do for this? And I'm like, well, you can see if you want. And she's like, I can't believe you're doing it that way. And so we joke around, but it was like, she came on board when we were doing 3 to 4 million. Right? And she is kind of in the background now. People don't give her a lot of credit, but she's one of the smartest business people, man or woman, that I've ever met. Wow. She's savvy at business, and she's a savage. And so she has this understanding of like business ops and leadership and the constructing of a company, a true integrator. And I think most businesses never break through 3 because they don't have that. They don't have that other piece. And I believe that a lot of entrepreneurs can get to 3 on their own. Like, I could get to 3 with my vision, my belief, good at culture building, can recruit enough people, right? Have a solid enough plan. But then if you're going to go from 3 to 10, you need an integrator. She was that integrator. You're going to go from 3 to 30, you need an integrator that can integrate all the systems. So how we've set our stuff up is I'm over marketing and I'm over sales and I'm understand fitness deeply, so I'm in the coaching department. But really my job is to sell through the way that I market. That's my zone of genius. And how we've set it up, because she's so skilled in all the other stuff, I don't have to focus on all the stuff that I cannot stand. It's a different skill set, dude. And so entrepreneurs have this, crazy belief, crazy vision, crazy, like, just, we're going to do it somehow, but somebody's got to know how. Yeah. And if you don't have that, businesses will get stuck at that 2 to 3 million over and over and over again. So yeah, we have, I call her the X factor. Like, she's behind the scenes, nobody knows about her. And I'm like, just keep doing what you do, because it allows me to go do what I do best. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because first off, shout out to your wife, because I met her. She's incredible. And I could tell you guys were brainstorming, doing something cool right then. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I've also noticed in studying business and seeing successful business people is the next breakthrough. Once you have the culture, you have the belief, you have the fundamentals, you're marketing good, it's not a matter of how, it's a matter of who. Who, not how. Yep. Right? And you found the who that can help take you to the next level. Right. And that's what I think what really good leaders do, is they pick the right who. Yeah. And I think it starts with self-leadership. You need to start, like, as an individual. Like, if I was, when I was starting out closing, I picked my who's very carefully. Like, I wanted to surround myself with guys playing at a whole new level, so that I could pick up on their the tonality, the objection handling, the belief, and I didn't surround myself with losers, I wanted to be the lowest income guy, and I'm happy to mentor guys that are hungry and stuff, and I do that now. But I'm like, dude, that's why I want to have you on the podcast, because I see you play it at a whole new level. Yeah. Who are some of the people right now that you're looking at and studying? I'll come back to that. I was just going to say that in the fitness industry too, it's a kind of a game of ego in the intellect, from an intellect standpoint, where a lot of these fitness coaches, they want to be the smartest fitness coach in the world. And it's like, that keeps them stuck. Yeah. So, dude, like, I have PhDs on my team. If someone's like, oh, John, I want to debate John on the biochemistry of what, I'm like, bro, like, I got PhDs on you can debate my team, because to your point, I'm like, I'm not trying to be the smartest, fitness coach in the world. I know how to get people shredded. It's not rocket science. You can debate on the molecules of who gives a fuck. Like, I don't care, right? And I'm just going to go find the best of the best of the best and recruit them on my team. And then you all can go debate if you want. And I think that, to your point, like, you were talking about it a little bit differently, but I realize that in this game, where the who is the way, right? If I can go find the best in the world, then I can be free to do what I need to do, which is help everybody in my organization eat, because they can't do what I do, right? So there's that. And then from a leadership standpoint, and you're talking about getting the right butts in the seat, like, that's a whole other level of the who too. So I'll answer the other question, where who am I looking to for mentorship? The internet world that we all know is very strange. I went on this, when I made my first 3 million, I remember getting in these masterminds, and it's like I walked in these rooms and these guys seemed to be like balling and doing all this, making all this money. And, it's like, man, I just couldn't wait to like play on their level. And then after about 24 months of like being in this, I guess, influencer circle, I started to realize that 90% of what people see on social and what people see, in their feeds is complete BS. It's like most of these guys aren't making that money. Most of these guys have much smaller businesses than I have. Much of these guys are talking about stuff hypothetically about building teams that don't even have a team, and they're talking about branding and their brand sucks. It's like, now I kind of exited that for a while, and I just put my head down and I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna go focus on me, and I'm not gonna be distracted about everybody doing everything. So now it's hard, man. Like I listen, Ed Milet is kind of like a North Star for me. He kind of got off social, but his podcast has always been one to inspire. He's built real business. Patrick Bet-David built real business. So I looked at people that aren't just necessarily influencers in this internet game. It's like, who's built real shit? And I want to learn from them, because you got to search now. And to give credit where credit was due, like Alex Hormozy was, I was one of the first people in his gym launch. And so when I had a brick and mortar gym, he was the first person that kind of taught me marketing. That was my first taste of marketing. I spent over probably $500,000 on coaching, getting coached from who I thought was the best. So, Alex Hormozy was one. Tanner Chittister was the one who kind of got me started in the online space. And there was multiple more. I mean, I've had mentors from Bob Proctor's team, sales mentors like Tony Robbins, like, dude, tons of mentorship that has all like added up to the me today. It's like all of it played its part, all the books, all the courses, all this stuff. And I've just always heavily invested in myself, knowing that it would pay off. Yeah,
I love that. And talk to me about what you feel like some of those best investments were. And then also, what kind of hand in hand, why is investing in yourself, even as a sales rep, important to your success?
I think that there's nothing that builds worthiness more than investing money into yourself. Because if you think about money, it's something that you value so much. And a lot of people argue that they don't value it, they don't care, whatever. Like money, like if you ever think of money, it's like, have you ever held like $60,000 in cash? Like someone paid me in cash one time. We had a $60,000 package, and it was like, he just brought it in a bag. I'm like, I don't care where you got it, bro, but I'll take this. And so I'm just like, and money, like, it has a smell, right? And it's like, I'm like, dude, this is 60 grand, bro. Like, if you give 60 grand, anybody, they could hate money. It's like, just hold all this money. Like, what do you feel, right? It's like this, it's powerful, but money's energy, right? And so in order to get money, you have to give value somewhere. Unless you're going to do it from, thievery or whatever. But let's just say you're honest and ethical. Like, you have to give your value to the world or marketplace in exchange for this dollar or, zeros in the bank account. And now everything up to that point constructed how much money you have. But then you have to take your money and give it to somebody and transact for something that you value more, right? And so when you do that and you transact into coaching, for example, it's like when I was paying for coaches, I wasn't thinking about giving you the money as a coach. To me, I always looked at it as, I'm giving you the money so that I can get the result, which is more important and going to be more money than this money now. So it's an investment that's going to be worth 10x more in the future. And so I think when you do that, it signifies to yourself that you're worth it. A lot of people have a worthiness issue. They don't believe that they're worthy of the success. And most people that don't believe they're worthy, it's because they haven't invested in themselves. If I've invested total over 500 grand, and I think I added it up, I did a video one time where I literally added up all the investments that I did into myself, and it was like $878,000. Wow. If you invest that much into yourself, you better believe you feel worthy of 30 million bucks. Right? And so it's like, if you haven't invested $10 in yourself, of course you're not going to feel worthy of of the success. So I just think it's a signal to your unconscious that you're worthy. And if you don't feel worthy, you'll never be worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, worthiness is such a huge thing. I've noticed that as well. And when I had my first 20K month as a closer, that's what I flipped the switch on. Is I was making, you know, 5, 6,000, 8,000, and then I just flipped the switch. I'm like, I bought a suit. I went and spent $800 on a suit. I put the suit on, and I invented a new identity.
Yes.
For myself. I'm like, I'm Bridger, the $1 billion closer.
There you go, bro. Dude, that's it. Yeah. That's it right there. I have like a self-image is essentially like one of my favorite topics in the world.
Oh yeah.
So you were asking how you create an identity. Well, first people, I think one of the things they get wrong is like you have yourself now and you try to improve it, which is a very long way to do it. It's like where you are now is here. This is blank. You get to go create it. What is that 5 year from now you gonna be? Like what's the future version of you? We do this in our fitness company. It's like, what do you want to look like? Like, you know, what specifically do you want to look like? Oh, I just want to lose some weight. No, not good enough. Like, I'm talking details. What do you want to look like? What's your facial hair going to look like? What are you going to wear when you show up? What are you going to drive? Like, what's on brand for you? So it's like, self-image to me is like you're thinking of yourself as a brand, and you're going to put as much effort into constructing your personal brand. And I'm not talking about logo. I'm talking about when you walk into a room, what do people associate you with? Your brand. What colors are you going to wear? Right? It's like I construct that with a lot of thought, and that's the first step. People don't think about it enough. And so when you do that and you put on that suit, or you go and get the new shoes, or you buy the new car and it's on brand for you, it's an energetic feeling. And that feeling, that winning feeling, dude, it just perpetuates. And people think it's stupid. Like, oh, John, why do you drive Lamborghinis and Ferraris? Because it's on brand. And life's way too short to drive a Sonata.
Facts,
That's
dude.
right, bro.
That's facts, man. Yeah, it's dude, I agree 100% with that. It's not the thing, dude. It's the thing when you get in it.
Yeah.
It's that feeling.
It's feeling.
And that's why people buy coaching.
Yeah.
They're not buying your coaching. They're buying the feeling of when they get in shape.
Right.
They're not even buying the body. They're buying the feeling of when they're in great shape.
Yeah.
They can take their shirt off at the beach, or with their family.
Exactly. Dude,
and they feel ripped.
And that's another difference of closers, right? Like they'll struggle if they're going to sell the process. It's like I don't do my own sales consults, obviously, but if I did, like I just paint pictures.
Yep.
Paint pictures, and the more descriptive, the better. It's like you walk it, you're playing golf with your buddies, and you grip that club, and you got a fucking vein crawling up your bicep. It's like that's what you want, right? You go to the pool, you're automatically like the most in shape dad at your country club. It's like the more picture you can paint and make it compelling of the future. That's how you get people to buy in emotionally. And so if you can't do that, like you're not going to move anybody. That's the secret to not even sales, but just influence.
Yeah.
If you can paint a compelling picture for somebody, you can recruit your face off because you're painting a picture for that individual. And so too many people want influence, but they don't understand, like you have to, like part of that is just being able to compel somebody with a better future opportunity of themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, this is so good, man. What are some of your favorite books that you've studied on self-image that these guys can grab onto and go deeper on?
So one of my favorite, I almost just mentioned it because we were talking about the feeling. Have you ever read any of Neville's stuff? Neville Goddard? Neville Goddard, he wrote The Feeling is a Secret. You can read this book in probably 2 days. You read it in a day. And so Neville has a book. I got a book where it has all 14 of his books, and some people read it and it's like kind of far out there stuff. It's the way that I think, and it's really in alignment with, like, if you followed Bob Proctor, Bob Proctor would always refer to Neville Goddard. So it's like Neville was older, Bob was like, really marinated a lot with Neville Goddard stuff, and all the way down into like Napoleon Hill, right? And so Neville Goddard is an author that I would study, and I would study over and over and over again, and the first one of those books is The Feeling is a Secret.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so good, dude. Feeling is the secret. I've never heard of that guy. I'm glad you shared that.
Bro, you'll love it.
Usually I hear, psycho-cybernetics or, some of these other books, which are great, but there's a power in going back to the OGs.
There's another book, too, that's, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I think Dr. Murray wrote it. Very powerful. Very powerful. And that's going to be right in alignment with, like, Neville, too. And for some people, if it's the first thing you read, you're going to be like, especially with programming, modern programming, you're going to be like, nah, dude, that's not how it works, right? Because it's gonna force you to re-examine your belief about reality. And so I know that I know that it works for my life, though.
Yeah.
Because like it's not like a hypothesis. It's like when I get into the feeling and I get into the frequency, that's when I make it rain.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And so it's like my job as a sales leader is to get my sales team to stay in that frequency too. And why is that hard? Is because, again, some of them haven't made that leap yet. They're still operating in this middle class mindset, this middle class frequency. And they're, on one hand, they want to be rich and make it rain. But over here, it's like they're operating out of scarcity. How do you know? It's in all the actions that you do. And so a lot of what Neville's going to talk about is, what are you assuming by the decisions that you're making every single day? So if I go into, I'll give you an example. I got a huge tax bill, and wasn't excited about it. Nobody really is, right? But it's like kind of champagne problems compared to not having any money 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
And so my initial thought was I could just file an extension and then pay it off over time. Or I was like, my brain automatically went into like, how do I not pay this now?
Yeah.
Right?
Avoid pain.
Right. And I in that book, I had been reading it, and I'm like, I'm assuming right now that I'm not going to continue to make it rain if I don't pay this off right now. If the only reason I don't pay this off right now is because I'm assuming that we're not going to continue to crush. And there's that feeling, what's that feeling? Scarcity.
Yeah.
And so then Neville's like, if you act on that feeling, people think that, you know, if I pay it and then whatever happens, it's I knew that was going to happen. No. You created that reality. You created that reality by your assumptions. You created that reality by your actual feeling. And so when I get in those moments where I'm like, have to decide something, should I do this or should I do this? I'm like, what am I assuming if I don't? I'm assuming that the faucet's going to stop. The faucet's not going to stop. Pay it now, right? I go into Ferrari. I'm like, plenty of money to buy it, but it's like, should I buy it? Is it stupid? Like, you know, like all these little micro things. It's like, yeah, buy it. Like, buy it. I'm assuming, and I'm not telling people to buy everything that they, you know, want and be entitled. It's like there's a line here, but the purpose of this is you have to start to examine every decision that you make or don't make when it comes to money. You go with simpler ones. You go to Mastro's, take you out, some of your sales reps, based on their programming. There's, in Scottsdale, there's $200 steak, Wagyu, you know, tomahawk. And a lot of people will look at that and they'll be like, I can't spend $200 on a tomahawk, but yet they have $100,000 in the bank. Like, why can't you spend $200 on a tomahawk steak, right? And so if you don't have $200, you can't buy the steak, but a lot of people could get what they wanted, but they settle for what they need, right? And so it's like, I really want the tomahawk 200, but I'm gonna get that $80 steak because, you know, it would be wasteful or it would be whatever. And so there's also this like, this playing for what you want instead of what you need that really unlocks a person's ability to ascend. So most of my life, I was always playing for like what I needed. It's like, I want this, but I'm gonna settle for this. Back in the day, I wanted a Ford Raptor. It was like, that's the truck I want. I want a Ford Raptor. I got a Dodge Rebel that kind of, it was like, it wasn't even the TRX version that kind of mimics the Raptor now. It was the knockoff Ford Raptor version. It's like kind of the same thing, but it was a lot cheaper. Why'd I do that? I was operating in scarcity. It was like I was operating from this unconscious program that what I wanted wasn't, like I wasn't worthy of what I wanted. I only needed what I needed. Where is that taught? From the time we're 5 years old, all the way, you don't need that. You don't need that. Of course I don't need this watch. I could get I tell, like if someone asked me what time it was, I'm probably not even gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. But I want this, right? And so how many of you guys listening are always playing for what you need? I promise you, if you start to shift into the frequency of playing for what you want, new levels will unlock. So it's all that like deep stuff. Neville talks about all that.
Dude, that's so fire.
Yeah.
Because, I coach a lot of beginner sales reps, right?
Yeah.
When I was running my sales team, and now I do it part-time. And what I notice is a lot of these guys are coming from the need.
Yeah.
So I've been coaching a lot on, hey, dude, let's get you enough to, get your needs met, 5K a month. But to ascend.
Different game.
Different game.
Different game. Think about it dating.
Yeah.
Who wins? The guy who's needy or the guy who is the least thing? Like, if you're dating, neediness is the worst thing you could be.
Yeah.
Sales is like dating. It's like and marketing too. It's like, you want to close people, act like you don't need them, right? And so it's like that neediness, that feeling of neediness, again, attracts more neediness.
Yep.
And so breaking someone out of that is like essential. And it is hard in the beginning. If you don't have it's a lot easier for me to not be needy when I have millions of dollars stashed in the bank, right? If you need to make that next sell, how do you come across as not needy? That's the difference. How do you do that, right? And it's like, it takes practice, and you got to have faith. That's how.
Faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, faith over fear, man,
Faith.
100%.
Yeah.
And also what I found also when it comes to communicating, anytime that we put all the pressure on ourselves, we're thinking about ourselves being selfish, communication is so much harder. Influence is easiest when you're focusing on what's best for the other person, and you believe and you see a better vision for that person than they even see for themselves.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, dude, like, this guy sees more for me than I do.
Right.
I'm in. Just take my money.
Yeah.
Just take my life. Let's go.
I'm in.
I'm in.
And so I think, and I don't teach sales like you, but those are the things that's going to be the difference in people. And it's like, those are the softer skills that are the deeper skills that's like at the root of human nature and influence. That's the difference. Not like, if a person says this, like, what do I say? You can learn those skills over time, but the meat of it is going to be in what you just mentioned.
Yeah, and that's what I teach mostly. And it started off as actually mindset and masculinity coaching.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Because these guys are just like, dude, they're all just like, dude, how do I live a cool life?
Yeah.
Like, I see you living a cool life, hanging out with Greg, making money, doing all this stuff. So I bring in 10, 15 guys, and I start coaching them, working with them. And, dude, they don't have a purpose. They don't know how to make money.
Yeah.
Well, dude, getting girls is going to be harder. Being healthier is going to be harder. Dude, let's get you a purpose. Let's get you a job.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, I love just training people doing that.
You know what's awesome about that is fitness is always at the centerpiece too. Right? At the centerpiece of anything, fitness is a piece there.
Definitely.
And for our company, I realized that what happened is I started to make a little bit of money, and then I got very clear even after that on like who my ideal avatar was that we were going to sell to. And I started going to these 5-star resorts, and I like to bougie it up and go to the Montage down in Laguna and stuff. And I'd go to the pool, and these guys would be wearing their Rolex watches, and they'd just be like swimming up to the bar, and they're just complete dog shit shape, right? And I'm like, man, I used to believe that how you do one thing is how you do everything. Yet when it comes to this 40 to 60 year old demographic, it's like they already have a wife, they've been married for 10 years, they're not in the game for sex and attraction, that's long gone, right? So they're not in the gym, and their whole status play is money. So like, there's a status game being played amongst men all the time. It's like we're unconsciously measuring status every time that we sit down with another person, right? And most of the time, if a person's fit and broke or a person's fat and rich, the person who's fat and rich is they're gonna have more status in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the money's they're gonna slap down that Rolex. They could be 50 pounds overweight, and they're gonna control the frame because they're the man in that situation. They're not the man in the gym, so they don't go to the gym because they don't like not being the man. So, right. It's like this vicious cycle. But you know who's gonna hold the frame no matter what? You come in there, you're a savage, and you are a baller too. Now that's a different, like, now you're holding the frame across the board, right? And so I started to speak like that, and I just started to attract like these guys who weren't in complete dog shit shape, but they realized that, dude, like, I want to be in elite shape. I want the $1 million body to match my $1 million lifestyle, because who cares if I'm flying private or I go to the valet and I pop out of my Aston Martin, it's like, dude, that's not the game.
Dude, I love that, man. And it must be fun to just work with ballers, dude, and just help them go from average okay shape to 1%. Because that transformation right there is probably really rewarding.
Dude, it's amazing. Like, we have a forum with our elite clients, and we're organizing we do some cool stuff where they fly out sometimes. Because guys want to hang out with each other, network, and also the centerpiece of it is, the medical piece, the fitness piece. But we're putting together, I bought a suite for one of the Raiders Chiefs games.
Yeah.
And so I was putting this stuff together. I'm like, I'm trying to get a jet to fly us out of Scottsdale to Vegas. And so I got one, locked it down, was 10 people, but there was 2 other people that wanted to pop on. So someone in my elite channel is like, bro, I got a 12-person jet. He's like, let me just make sure the schedule works out and we'll use that. And I'm like, in our program, like the people that are in there, ballers, bro.
That's
awesome.
epic, dude.
Yeah, and it's great, dude, because it's like I want to know those people because again, if you are around that high caliber type of person, it's like life's easier, man.
Yeah.
If your network is robust, life is a lot easier.
Yeah, you have a problem, you make a phone call.
Yeah, exactly.
I had that recently.
Yeah.
A couple months ago, I was like trying to figure out some credit stuff, whatever. Called up my boy, spoke at his mastermind.
Yeah.
He does credit, crushes it. He's like, oh, dude, just do this. Boom. Applied, did the thing, $50,000 line of credit, 0% interest, 12 months.
Yeah.
Like I would have never known how to do that, but it was because I knew that guy. I made the one phone call, followed exactly what he told me to do, and then I got the result.
But you only get there if you're impressive.
Yeah.
If you're a forgettable person, you can go to the masterminds, you can do the trainings, it's like you're so unimpressive that we're not even going to recognize you.
Yeah,
but if you leave an impression and you are impressive in your presentation, that network grows. It's like that game is being played and so many people just discount that, they show up looking average when it's so easy to be a pattern interrupt in this world where no matter where you go, it's like you can't forget that person because he has it. And it's apparent to, I heard Ed Milet talking about that. There was a podcast where he was talking about, he'll go to these speaking events and he'll be, standing there with one of his people and he'll like tap him and be like, that guy's a baller, or that guy's got it. He had a word for it where it's like, that guy's got it. And he's like, you just know. And so it's like, you do just know, but people don't want to admit that this game is being played. But if you're that guy that's like, he's got it, it's like your world opens up in a way where it's like life just is a lot easier. And the only thing you have to do is be impressive. Yeah. And you can't be impressive if you look like shit.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Both physically and how you dress.
Right.
And dude, I love your style.
Yeah, thank you.
Give me some style tips, dude.
I mean, Dior.
Dior, Gucci, Louis Vuitton.
Yeah. I had, in the beginning, fashion is something that is interesting because I remember going into the stores and feeling weird. Have you ever been walked into Christian Dior or Louis Vuitton and you feel like an imposter?
Yeah, I had at one point.
Right, me too. Yeah, so it's like, I remember my wife, it started with my wife and the designer shoes back in the day, and we had to, buy these Louboutins and put it on a credit card. We're walking in and it's like we're afraid to touch this stuff, and it's like you just feel like people's looking at you. Yeah. Right? And
don't belong.
You don't belong. And you don't, but it's like we did it anyways. And but eventually you walk in and you're just like, I can buy whatever I want. So it's a different feeling. But when I first got into it, I bought a lot of stuff that I thought I would like that I didn't really like. It's like different colors, different, I thought because it said Dior that it would just automatically be something that I liked, but I realized that there's different colors that I made a decision that's like, I'm not gonna wear all colors. I'm gonna have a brand that's either white or black, right? You're not gonna see me in blue or, even if I like those colors, I'm not gonna show up in blue or green or some off colors. You see John speaking on a podcast or on stage, it's white or black. So then I eliminate a lot of choice when I go into these stores. I'm like, what do you have in white or black? Right? And so it's then I'm I got this shirt, I tried on black and they had it in white, so I bought two. It's same shirt, just white or black. And then the fit is very important too. Some of the stuff is you pay $900 for a t-shirt, but it fits terrible. It's it doesn't, you're not gonna wear it. Yeah. And so I have to, I can't just shop online and have it sent to me. I have to go there. I have to make sure the fit is the way that I like it. And if it makes me look too skinny or too whatever, I don't like it. So I just I think a lot of times you come into the style by making some mistakes. I was I bought a lot of stuff that I'm I actually don't like that.
Yeah.
Why'd I buy it? Because I thought I would like it based on the brand.
Yeah.
But it's not just the brand, it's the fit, and then it's like the color scheme, and ultimately going back to the self-image, it's like, how do you see yourself walking around, you know?
Totally. Yeah. When I was starting to make money as a closer, right, I had the suits, and then when I wasn't suiting up, right, I was partying, I was having fun, so I probably bought $2,000 or $3,000 of these like $300 All Saints shirts.
Okay.
These like super flamboyant, and they work, dude. I got millions of views. I even like, I started talking about, because at the time I loved talking about dating.
Okay.
And so I didn't even mean to do it. I was just hanging out with Greg at his place, and I start creating this dating content on what I'm doing in my dating. I'm just talking about real time, bro. The second video got like 1.7 million views.
Amazing.
It just exploded. Yeah. And I was doing exactly what you said. Is I was building the brand. I was building the look. I was building the feel. And people are like, this is something I relate with. I'm standing out. I'm being different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one time, dude, I got asked to speak on stage at the in Vegas. It was Caesar's Palace, and a guy knew somebody who was putting on the event, and the main speaker was Grant Cardone, and there was all these other names, and I'm like, bro, like this is like when I was kind of an imposter. Like I was doing $300K a month, and thought I was kind of a big shot, but it was like Grant Cardone speaking on stage, and so I was like, I psyched myself out, and I went and I got all suited up, $5,000 suit. It's like a 3-piece, got these fucking blue suede shoes, and I had to walk because we were staying at a hotel that's like right connected to the Ville. It was a nice hotel, Bellagio, I think, right? And so I'm like, all right, babe, like I'm gonna go walk over there. And so I put these shoes on, and as I start walking, I get a blister because these shoes just hurt so bad. And I'm like, the suit's not my style, right? It's not me at all. And so I tried to think that was me. And I get on stage and I start doing the presentation, and I'm just like out of my element. I'm like, I don't feel good. Like it's a $5,000 suit that it's just like not me. I got these blue suede shoes on. As I'm pacing the floor, I feel a blister just pop, and I'm like, I know there's gonna just be like a pool of blood underneath my sock.
Wow.
I could not wait to get off stage. Yeah. I got off and I'm like, that was the worst speech I had ever done in my life.
Wow.
And I'm just like, everyone's like, you did good. I'm like, let's get the hell out of it. Like, let's get out of here. And then I like took my shoes off, and there was a big old like blood puddle in my sock. And I learned that day, I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna be me. Yep. Like whatever me is, like it's gonna be me, and I'm not gonna try to be something that's not really me. And I think that's another tip too. It's like you can be, I got Tim Grover coming to an event. He's always suited up. That's him. Yeah. Right. But if I speak on stage, I'll be dressed, something like I am today. And so I think you just got to know like what style is yours, and not try to be something different. But when you first start constructing this image, you're gonna do that sometimes. You're gonna think that you're like, I'm gonna try this thing out, and sometimes you get burned. Like I got burned on stage. It's like you learn what not to do. Yeah. Totally, man. That's fire. Well, as we're coming to the wrap of the podcast, man, we've been cruising. What other life lessons would you want to leave behind with these guys? Oh man, the biggest one is definitely that permission piece. It's like an action step here is like, where are you not giving yourself permission to, in my words, win? But then you have to define what winning is, right? Like where are you holding yourself back, and for what reason? So that's something that I like to do, like journaling. It's like it's simple. It's like, where am I not giving myself permission? You think about it, meditate on, think about it, give yourself some space to be like, it's in there, and what comes up is usually right. So that's one. And then number two would be, do you have crystal clarity about where you're going? And so it goes back to all the stuff that we were talking about, crystal clarity about the branding of you. Like, is that crystallized? Have you spent any time on it? And chances are you haven't, right? People don't spend any time on that. They're spending time constructing a logo or a brand, and they're spending a lot of time on that. But I'm talking about that personal self-image. Like, are you crystal clear about what the ideal self is gonna look like, feel like, talk like, be like, act like, attributes? It's like, what do you want that person to be? And so for me, like what I did is like, how do I want to feel, right? Like, what are those emotional words? And how do I want other people to feel when I walk into a room, right? And so very, very important there. And then also it's like, get clarity about where you're going in general in your career. It's like, what do you actually want your life to look like? How clear are you on that? One of the exercises that I had someone help me with long ago is he made me write down a list of 100 material things on once, because he was trying to break me out of that cycle of stop playing this game of life for what you need and go for what you want. So he's like, I want a list of 100 material things, and you can't give them to anybody. You can't give them to Nineveh. You can't give them to your daughter. You can't give them to your parents. Like, they're for you. So that's rule number one. Then 100 experiences, because experiences and material things are two different things.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, okay, cool. And he gave me like 48 hours to do it. I got to like 20 of material things, and I could not think of anything else, because I had trained myself for so long to not want. I found virtue in not wanting or not needing. So it's like, I'm happy. It was like I tied this happiness word into it. It's like, well, I don't need like the Ferrari. I'm happy with the Porsche. You know what I mean? And so it's like, he's like, no. I didn't ask if you were happy. It's like, if you had a genie and you could have 100 things, like, I didn't say you could only have one card. Like, you could have 20 of them on there. It's like, what do you want?
Yeah.
This is your life. And so I found it fascinating how my brain started to like say, you don't need that, or that's too extravagant, or, you know, you're not that type of person. All that stuff came up, and it was a battle for me to get to 100, bro. Experiences was a little bit easier. It's like, I want to take my family here. I want to do this. I want to, you know, see this place. So it was a lot of travel. That seemed to be a little bit easier. It's like, I want to go to the Masters. I want to go to, you know, tons of experiential things. That was like easier for me to hit. 100 material things really shook me. And I got the lesson through this coaching, where it was like, you're so conditioned to just not need stuff. You're blocking your own ambition. You're blocking your own desire. Dude. And so it's like your unconscious mind, he's like, you set goals consciously, but you hit goals unconsciously. Your unconscious self is the goal getter. Your conscious mind is a goal setter. So he's like, you're setting all these goals consciously, but you have no reason unconsciously to go after them, because you're suppressing your own desire. It's like, you don't need anything. Why would it do what it's designed to do? Why would it go pursue? And I was like, man, that right there is a lesson for everybody. It's like, see if you can get 100. I bet you when you get to 15, if you're anything like me, you're going to start to really trip out about how you don't need anything. Yeah.
As you were saying that, that's an incredible exercise, by the way. If you're watching this, don't just listen to this, act on this information. This is very valuable coaching that you're giving. The light bulbs started to go off for me. How many times in my own life am I saying, well, you know, I don't really need that.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I don't need that. Well, you don't need really anything. You need food, shelter, and water.
Right. We're not talking about need. We've surpassed need.
Yeah.
Some of you guys got to get your needs right. It's like, want is nowhere for you to be considering if you can't put food on the table. But when you've surpassed, I mean, you're living in Scottsdale in one of the nicest places. Need is not a thing anymore. Yeah. So it's, what do you want? It's a different question. So good, it's a different answer.
Yeah. And when you grow up lack of need, or you grow up where you're the have-nots, right? I'm so conditioned for over a decade, 15, 16, 17, 18 years. I left the house when I was 19 years. I have 2 decades of unprogramming. I'm 23.
Right.
So I've been doing the unprogramming for 5, right? So yeah, dude, that's so good. I'm going to do that today. I'm going to go do that at the coffee shop.
Do it.
That's so good, man.
Yeah. Tell me how far you get.
I'll tell you how far I get before the thoughts.
I can do it like this now.
Yeah, you can do it easily.
I have so much stuff there. It's like so much stuff, bro. And unapologetic. And so the last lesson,
Okay.
Unapologeticness about all of it. It's like, you don't have to be sorry for wanting to live an extravagant life, right? And it's like, some people are baked in religion, or they're baked in a school system, they're baked in, you know, just lack, where it's like, it's not virtuous to be unapologetic about any of this stuff. But it's like, dude, like, we live here for this finite amount of time. Like, if we're all created and we're one of one in 8 billion, it's like, we only have, there's no other person that has your fingerprint right now. And we were put here for whatever reason, in this time, it's like, it's never been easier to win. Go experience and taste it. It's like, of course you're capable, worthy, and deserving. And so I just can't imagine suppressing all of that and not ever experiencing it.
That's so good, man. Are you good to go another 5 minutes? I have one more question that I thought of that I really want to get into, which is, you mentioned something earlier that I was going to hit on, but we just got going. Zone of genius. You mentioned that. What does that mean to you? And when you said you live in your zone of genius, which is driving sales, marketing, etc., what does that look like?
Yeah, I think that, like, you got to bring up weaknesses if they're weak, right? But I'm never going to be great at something that I don't love. And so when it comes to the biz ops and the technical stuff and the, you know, the stuff that the businesses require, that's not my zone. And I would never feel the sense of freedom I have if I wasted too much of my energy on stuff that's not my strength. Your strength lies in what you're great at and what you actually feel like you get in flow, like you're flowing when you're doing it, and it's almost seems natural, right? And so I think that people should stay and double down and triple down and quadruple down on their strengths and not worry so much about their weaknesses. Their weaknesses will always be solved through who? It's like, I can go find somebody whose zone of genius is over here, and that's not mine, and now we're very complementary. So me and my wife's zone of genius is, there's overlap, but there's also very distinct differences. That's why we can build what we build. And so even in business partnerships, it's like, if you're one way, like, and you have a business partner that's another way, and it's complementary, and you guys can both stay in your zone, it's like, that's how you win. I think people spend a lot of time trying to, like, you know, even themselves out, and it's like they don't give their strengths enough, you know, they don't spend enough time there, and they spend far too much time in their weaknesses, and it's like they don't allow that zone to just let them flow into, you know, whatever they want. Yeah,
and to explode. And that's one of the reasons why when I'm mentoring younger guys, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and they're like, dude, what should I do? Should I start a business? Bro, you don't have any skills, dude. Yeah. You got 1-inch skills, dude. Yeah. It's like, dude, let's go all in on one skill.
Yeah.
What is that one skill for you? And that's how I started my coaching. I was like, what's the one? And the easiest skill, I think, for anybody to learn and master that you're already doing every single day, from the time you open your mouth, you learn to speak, is sales. Little babies are selling their parents on what they need. Yeah. You're selling needs. And as you get older, you start trying to sell wants. I want this toy. I want to go here. I want to hang out with this person. I want to, do this. You're already influencing. Why not get paid a large amount of money to do that?
Yeah.
And this is probably what you learned with your pricing. I'd be curious. But dude, to sell a $500 program and a $50,000 program, $50,000 program is sometimes easier. A lot of times easier.
It is, bro. That's my thing. Is like, I'd rather get 150 than a whole bunch of these other ones that are just as hard. It's like, you can follow me for free on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? For free. And I have like 16,000 followers. And so it blows people's minds when they know how much, because they would think that if I'm doing this well in fitness, like, I'd have millions of followers. It's like, no, it's like, followers and dollars are two different things.
Totally.
Two different things. Like, some people are playing the game for likes and follows. I'm playing for dollars and impact.
Yep.
Right? And it's interesting that you say that, because influence and sales is something that all of us, we have to do. And, it's a very high paying skill too, if you cultivate it and you get good at it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you and I are friends with, well, I'm not super close with him. I met him a couple of times, but Jeremy Minor, right? He's crushed it. Commission only sales, millions of dollars.
Yep.
Great lifestyle.
Yeah. If I didn't have, I've thought about this a lot. It's like, what would you do if you didn't have your business anymore? I'd go sell. It's like, dude, there's so much opportunity out there to make way more money than doctors who spend 12 years going to school, and you could just be good at selling. Yeah. And it's like, you don't even need to go to school for 12 years and to do all that education and get your PhD or any of that. You could go slay sales, dude.
I know. And you can learn it quick.
Yeah.
Like quick. Like,
do you think that there's a certain personality that's better, or?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think there's two types of people in sales. There's always going to be two. There's the natural salespeople. They have, I actually have on my desk, I went to a Leadership Essentials. There's the DISC personality.
Okay.
Right? The high influencers, high drivers, those people are incredible at sales. Right? Because they love talking all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just, it doesn't drain them. Right? Their account that their bank account for being able to communicate is so much higher. They can take 8, 12 calls a day easy. Now, I think that with people that don't have the natural propensity, I think that everyone can get very, very good, get 80, 85% of the way, but to become a true killer, I haven't met true killers that aren't naturals.
Right.
Because it's like talent and hard work.
Yeah.
You got to have the talent and the hard work to become a 1%er.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I definitely agree with that. It's interesting to think about, and sometimes people box themselves in by saying like, I've always been this way, and it's like, well, you've decided to always be that way. You can easily decide not to be that way too, but there is this naturalness that some people just exude, and when you combine that with a little bit of grit and toughness, bro, game over. It's game over,
and that's why I love sales, because when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, like I called up one of my high school friends, middle school friends, and you know, he's in no surprise that I'm in sales right now, because he's like, dude, you're an incredible salesperson. Like you're gonna do sales when you get older.
Yeah.
So I was getting told that as a young person, and I think that also impacts you. But it was just naturally what I did. I just was always selling, always influencing, always communicating, always leading. And so for you, I wanted to ask you this as well. That goes in with the zone of genius for the marketing, because I think marketing and sales go hand in hand. When you learn sales, you can then become a better marketer, because you know the downstream. You've been crushing your VSLs. I love your VSL. It's so unique and polarizing and different, and we talked a little bit off camera about that.
Yeah.
What are some of those, I guess, best practices that you're doing now to become an even better marketer? Because I think that will take you to 100 million, 200 million, etc.
I believe that if you're great at marketing, the sales, it takes pressure off of sales. And if you're terrible at marketing, sales is going to be a little bit more difficult. I'd rather be great at marketing, and then kind of, not that sales is going to be easy, it's going to be a lot easier, but for me, I think of marketing as a primal, like marketing. Most marketing is flashy, or commercialized, or generic, I should say. The marketing that hits, though, reaches a person at the primal level. And so that marketing isn't going to be taught in most marketing books. It's going to be taught in human nature books, 48 Laws of Power, Seduction, Robert Greene stuff, human nature. It's like, that's actually where I learned the most about marketing. If I know how a person is moved, then I know how to reach them at that level, at that unconscious level, that they don't even know they're being reached. And so the reason why my marketing is so polarizing is because the first thing that I say on your demo is probably maybe not, but if you're over 30, you've seen my ads, because I spend $700,000 a month on ads, and people hate them, but a small number of people love them. And it's because I tapped into this, like, you ever been to like a nightclub and they have like the red ropes and there's a line out the building? Right, and so like hot girls come up and the bouncer like lets them in, but it's like dudes come up and they're like, no, bro, like you either give me money or you can go stand in line, right? There's this exclusivity, right? There's this elitism that is at play. People hate it, bro. People hate it. And so in my marketing, I'm like, you have to make a certain amount of money for us to even accept your application. And so people are like, bro, like fitness is free, bro. Like you don't need to make money to get fit. I'm like, I didn't say that. Like, you took it that way because you're mad that you don't make that much money. There's a million other coaches that will coach you for less, and there's a million other apps, or you could even go to ChatGPT, write up your fitness program. I don't care. Like, some people shop at Walmart, some people shop at Louis Vuitton, and I understand the human nature of that. Yeah. Some people love premium, some people love luxury. I went to the Apple store the other day and we were deciding on a computer. You know how you compare models? Yeah. Right? So like people are in there toiling over this decision, and the lady's helping my wife. She's like, what are you gonna use it for? I'm like, babe, just get that one. It's like, the one farthest to the right is the most expensive. Deal done, because the way my brain works, and it's not always like this, but if it's the most expensive and it's the fastest, and I have the money, I don't want something that's not the best. And so that's how I've set up my fitness program, where it's like, we're premium. I understand people can get fitness at a discount wherever they want to go. I understand that there's starving fitness coaches out there that'll do it for $50 a month, but you come and join us, it's going to be 10 grand, right? And so like that alone attracts my personality type, where it's like, my guys want to brag to their friends that they spent this much money on a fitness program. Yeah. And people that don't come for money or don't understand it, mind blown, dude. Like, why would someone do that? Because it's human nature. And so human nature is status. Human nature is respect. Human nature is pride. Human nature is jealousy. Human nature is envy. I can tap into those emotions and it lights people. It's like they just react without even thinking, and they like, it hits the people wrong, and they're like, F you, John, like you're such an elitist, like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bro, like goes back to giving myself permission to win. It's like, I can't cash your negative comments in at the bank, but I am gonna go drive my Ferrari to the bank and cash a bunch of money. And so marketing is much more human nature than you could get a marketing textbook and read about marketing. That stuff, like, that's the easy stuff. You wanna go deep in sales and marketing, study human nature.
Dude, that's so fire. And guys, we're gonna throw up a screenshot. My editors throw this up here. Not even, was it yesterday, a couple days ago? This is the best screenshot I've seen in a while. You've got like 12 of your haters' comments.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then you see your deposits to your account.
Oh yeah.
$1 million.
Yeah, it was
cash,
in 10 days.
In
cash.
10 days.
Yeah.
And then you're just like,
yeah.
The work speaks for itself or something like that.
I just, it gives me tons of content, because it's like, I get all these guys that think they're like, this guy's going broke, he's got to be in debt, and those are rental cars. And I'm like, bro, I'll just show you screenshots of my bank. And they're not even probably seeing it, right? But it's like, then it taps into the people, because a lot of people are seeing those ads and they're going to my profile and they're like, I want to know more about this guy. So if I do what most people do, and it's like, if you get cancel cultured, right, and everybody starts coming at you, most people apologize. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna lean right into it. Like, the more you say, I'm gonna do even more of that. And so then what happens is, like, people are like, oh, no wonder why he's like this. Like, he's got people attacking him all day long, and he's just like squashing them on screen. So it's like, do I like this guy? Do I hate him? And I want those two things to happen in all of my stuff. It's like, I want you to love me or I want you to hate me. I don't want anybody, the middle of the bus is like, you got to get off. You got to choose. Here's a line in the sand. You hate John or you love John. And that's how I want my brand to be, because then you got like people that'll ride for your brand and nobody's in the middle. But you got to be tough, because most people they're not willing to take that much heat. Yeah,
you're thick skinned. And I got hit at 18. So I did a program and it kind of blew up, and I had one of these guys be like, oh, Bridger's just in it for the money. I was making a ton of money. I was 18, bought a BMW cash, made like 65 grand in 3 months. I was like, dude, this is nuts. I was like, I mean, it was a lot of money for me at the time. And so I had this like group of haters just attack me, dude. And they're like, Bridger doesn't care about you. His program is, he's like, he just wants to make money, you know, all this stuff. And dude, I was 18. I buckled. I didn't know what to, I shut down, dude.
You did?
I did. I shut down. I was
going to say, the best thing you could do is be like, yeah, bro, I'm going to go buy another one. See, that's...
I should have done that. I didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't know that.
Well, dude, I had 18 years of programming. I was still living with my parents.
I wouldn't have done that at 8. Like, I needed to undo all of this personal development stuff to be able to take this.
Totally.
And that's why, like, people just... in the fitness industry, they're not willing, dude. They're not willing to do what I'm doing, which kind of gives me an advantage, because I'm like, good. Like, I think that making money is really easy in this economy in fitness, but most people aren't willing to do what it takes. They want to be loved. I don't care if you love me.
Yeah. Dude, I loved it. Love seeing your journey, man. I'm excited to see where you go, and really appreciate you going the extra time here. We'll have to have you back soon.
Yeah, dude, let's do it.
Cool, man. All right, guys, listen, I want to make sure that you connect with John. Again, it's free to follow him on Instagram. His program is not, though. So if you want to pay premium, there's nobody else in the fitness industry that I would actually trust more than you to give you your money. In fact, I was actually at dinner last night, Maple and Ash, my buddy's bachelor party.
Oh, nice.
And he's pulling up, he's tracking his calories, and guess what app he's using?
Mine?
Supra Human.
There you go, bro. We're taking over.
Yeah, you're taking over, dude. It's everywhere. So where can these guys find you? Yeah,
I am John Madsen on Instagram. That's like the most interaction. That's a social platform I use the most. I do have a podcast that I shut down, and there was a reason for that, but there's 304 episodes. Wow. And so that lives on. To me, like it's like a disc. It's like an album that I felt was completed, to where there will be other stuff that'll come out, but that is insight into my mentality from zero, plugging a microphone into my phone, to a company that did over 2.5 million last month. And that's when I ended it. It's like, if someone goes back from the beginning and listens to all 300 episodes, and it's not interviews, it's all 15-minute chunks, 20-minute chunks, all of it is in there, bro. I remember doing the episode where I was pissed off because I took out that loan, and I just spilled it on the thing. So that's just like, that's gonna live on as like, that's a journey for any entrepreneur that wants to see the mentality get to a certain place. Now there will be another album, but that podcast is called The Show with John Madsen. So anybody can find that on Spotify or iTunes.
Dude, that's so fire. I'm excited to dive into those records, man. It's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, guys, listen, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. Hey, share this with someone. There's so many gold nuggets, so much time and value that you can extract from just this one episode. Share this with someone that struggles with that broke mindset, maybe a friend of yours that you want to see go to the top with you. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. Guys, I am Bridger Rogers. This is Bridging the Gap, and we'll see you guys next time.